Hello, you guys. It's K Cole here again, checking in with you guys. Of course, I am and always driving, and sometimes I get those the best messages and things that I need to get out during conversations and while I'm driving in meditation. But either way, this YouTube channel is called Living a Revived Life, Living Revived. Today is a possible thing, and with everything going on in our lives, our community, our country, the world in general can definitely leave us feeling empty and needing a little bit more direction. And it's not taking anything out of anybody's faith tradition, but just bringing a little bit more understanding, practical applications that we may use to take care of our emotional and spiritual self. So today's topic is definitely over identification. That's one of my favorite things that I learned about during my residency as a chaplain is identification. How am I identifying myself with the world? How do I identify, not just in gender, not just in sexual orientation, not just in title, not just in education, but how do I identify? So let's go into that. Over identification. One of the most common over identifications that are out there that keeps people trapped in a loop and in a circle of negativity and sickness is over identifying with the title of what they're going through. Does that make sense? So when someone has been diagnosed with a certain level of interference with their cell regeneration, which is cancer, right? Let's just say cancer, they owe the big C word, but really it's just your cells are now developing in a different way, and they call it cancer, okay? But when I hear people talk about it, they say, my cancer, I have this cancer, let's fight cancer. So they make it seem like, number one, it's an entity, and number two, that entity now has them, that they have become this thing. I have this thing. I am this thing. This thing is a part of me. And so that's how they identify as a person who is a survivor of cancer, who has cancer, or who have lost people to cancer. Now cancer has taken a hold over not just that person but generations. Because of how we speak about it, we identify it with it as it's something like it's an entity, right? We identify with the word cancer as if it's the Holy Spirit. Oh, the cancer got this. Like, we really make it a entity, and that's really it's a spiritual thing. Because if you think about it, it's really not genetic, right? It's not. Some people may some of it is, I guess, comes down the bloodline or whatever. But how do you explain healing from one person and healing not from another person, or how do you explain all these group of people getting it, but these group of people are not getting it? How really do you explain that? And they and over identifying with the word can really cause it to manifest in your body. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying anything wrong with people who have this cell. The cells are not generating properly as they should, so they need correction in some way, right? And how does that correction happen? First, it really happens in speech and in thought. Let's just be real. You can take all the chemo, all the radiation you want, but if you're continuing to identify with that thing by calling it an entity, that's something you are identifying with, then it will always have a hold on you, okay? It will always show up in your life and other people's life. And I know that's a big thing. And even if we can move that on, so I can only use for myself because I'm not a cancer survivor, but I have talking to people who was using words like that. And I said, listen, no, let's start using powerful words. Let's start speaking healing over these cells that just need some kind of correction. And right now, the correction is in this pill. The correction is in whatever treatment that the doctor has prescribed to to you. So let's have faith that the treatment is working. Let's have faith that with every step, every breath, every word that you can speak over this thing, that the cells are going to correct itself, and whatever's off balance can balance itself. Let's really speak power to this thing. We will not, I got, my can. No, we will not over-identify with this thing. We will detach from this thing. And I'm a living testimony. No, I never have had a full-blown stages of cancer that I had to heal from, but there's other things in my life that I had to heal from, and most of those things are mental healing, spiritual healing, because of things that, and I'm going to say this because I used to over-identify with the word trauma, and I almost said it right now, but I stopped. Oh, shit. Shoot. Sorry, y'all. I used to over-identify with the word trauma. I used to say, I had a lot of trauma in my life. Is that not the same over-identification? I've made trauma now an entity. Oh, yeah, secondary trauma. Oh, I experienced all this trauma. So I refuse to continue to say that, because I used to say, I was diagnosed with PTSD because of this and that and this and that and this and that. And I stopped telling that story. Why? They said, you could help somebody. No, my story of trauma, of saying that I have identified with this thing called trauma, is only bringing other people to identify with this word called trauma. So I chose to start identifying with Christ. If I'm going to identify, if I am going to say anything, if I'm going to speak anything about my past, my future, my present, let it be good. Let it be noble. What he say? Let it be lovely. Let it be full with grace. Let it be seasoned with salt. If I am going to say anything about where I am going, where I've been, or where I want to get to, if I'm not speaking in the affirmative, then I'm not identifying with Christ. And if I'm not identifying with Christ, then I'm living in a dead and falling world. What are you identifying with? What words are you attaching to your spirit, your mind, your heart, and your soul? And what type of language can you release? And some people, but you don't understand what happened to me. If you was there, if I could tell you, that's what I'm talking about. It's called over-identification. Not saying I don't want you to tell your story if it make you feel better, but at some point, you have to stop telling the story of gloom, gloom, and doom and come out of that thing and start using different words. Now, when I say different words, this is what I mean, because I want to take away from anybody's experience. When I say different words, this is what I mean. Different words by, when I think of abuse, I'm not longer going to say, I was abused. I'm saying, you know what? At some point in my life, a few people, they inappropriately interacted with me in some ways. And you know what? Okay. In my life, at this time, this person may have made a decision that's probably wasn't something that was conducive of how children and men should relate. But listen, grace be unto God that was just a moment in my life, and I don't have to identify with the word abused. I wasn't abused, okay? This person may have incorrectly related themselves to me at this time, but I refuse to say that I'm a victim of abuse, because I'm not a victim. I'm only identifying with Christ, and with Christ there is life. With Christ there is forgiveness, and with Christ there is grace. And yes, do I think about these people in my life who at some point in their life made some very poor decisions? When I think about them, forgiveness. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. What are you saying thank you for? Thank you for this disproportionate relationship. No, thank you that I can say thank you. And grace be unto God that I'm not in the judgment seat, okay? Thank you that I'm still alive. Thank you that I still was able to have children. Thank you that I did not die from HIV or AIDS. Thank you that I'm still alive. Thank you that I can reach for more. Thank you that I can even say forgiveness. I love you. I love you because you're a child of God. and 30 years ago you might have made a mistake, but listen, today we are here. Whether you receive this or not, it's up to you. That's what I mean by over identification. Where are we over identified? What do you want to identify with? When people see you, what do they want to think? Oh, that's the girl who's in all the trauma. Not saying that that's your trauma. I don't want to take away from what you've been through, right? Or what you were perceiving as something that was very daunting on your life. I don't want to take away from that, but at some point you have to detach. If you want to heal others with your prayers and concerns and good thoughts, we have to start by healing ourselves. And healing really takes a high level of detachment of the story that we've been telling, that same old story, and telling a new story. It takes courage. And I'm here to lead y'all through it. All right. Thank you for listening to me again. I said it, but I'm going to say it again. If we want to heal others, if we really want our prayers to work for this world, we really have to start an internal process. And that ability to be revived and to live a life of abundance and grace is here today. We do not have to wait until we die to go to heaven, wherever realm you feel like you're going to. We do not have to die to connect with the divine. Today, we can live in the divine. God bless.